So that's it. Out of the crowd of criminals, you isolate them, you prevent them from forming a mass, a multitude, for a threat to power that be. Everyone, the individualization has to do with the control. The more individual, the more controllable we are. Right? Of course, the prison you were talking about, the recently abolishers work because in prison they can't afford to have an individualization of the crime. It's too costly. Right? But ideally, that's what they do. But in fact, they can't do that anymore. Right? So in fact, that's the reason why the individualization under the eye of the law has been replaced now by the individuation in relation to other people who are convicted. And then another kind of knowledge that he doesn't talk about is being made possible by the impossibility of enforcing this type of panopticon. But the panopticism is also an idea that patient can be seen from a point of, from one central view, but only the surveyor can have a total view over the criminals, right? No. So it's panoptic, but it's not a perspectivist view. It is a centralized view on a variety, on a plurality of criminals, right? So in fact, the centrality of control is there, but the control is not repressive. Secondly, the power is not seen anymore, right? And in a sense, what you have here is already the beginning of this disappearance of the power as an object of that can be identified, right? Each of the individual internalizes a control, so that control, instead of coming from above, comes from below. And so it's already the beginning of another reversal, which is a reversal of power. From the image of sovereignty, where the sovereign is on top of the pyramid, now we have the horizontal functioning of power. The more diversified the control is, the more positive it is, the more efficient it becomes, right? And these disciplines that are supposed to individualize, the production of an individual itself becomes a control. The more individualized we are, the more control we are, the more a product of control we are. So again, when you begin with, it's a bit sacrilegious to say that, especially in a society like America, where you say the society is founded on an individual, right? So what it is saying very explicitly is that the entire society is used to produce such a thing that is an object of control that the individual is. And of course, if the individuality has to do with the production of a certain type of subjectivity, then it means that the entire society is called upon to produce every single individual. So the individual is never alone. No? But he internalize the entire society in order to be able to be an individual, right? So here you are, what makes, for instance, the emblematic power of American society, that it produces people by making them responsible to the others. Everyone is meant to internalize the approval or non-approval of people who are among them. If you have someone by themselves, then they would be too free. That's why correlative to the positive value given to individualization, there is a negative value given to the individual who is alone, right? And you can see periodically, whenever there is a murder, right? Somebody, we ask the neighbors, what do you think of this? We don't know. We don't know him. He never got out of his house. He never talked to his neighbors. He had no this. He had no that. He didn't communicate. He had no friends, right? And you understand in reverse that to have friends, to talk, to communicate, to go to socialize is essential. The individual is the one who socializes most. And I always thought that the epitome of the American, the model of the American culture is, of course, a criminal. The murder is the epitome of individualism, right? Because he's someone who can commit a crime without being seen, right? Without being identified. But you notice in the newspaper, it's like a totally rhetorical thing. As soon as a crime is being committed, and they say he was a loner, right? There's a huge distance between the loner and the individual. The individual is a positive creation. The loner is a self-creation at the expense of the rest of society. Right? But the loner gives a key to it. Right? And that's why he has to be a criminal. And people say, well, of course, he didn't have any friends. Of course, he didn't talk. He had to be a criminal. He was already a criminal in advance. He took the position of criminality, and when he did it, it verifies the fact that no one can be alone. No one can escape the evaluation that constantly occurs in society that makes an individual an individual. You know? So again, here, it's a total reversal. Right? We don't tolerate individuality in a society that's based on the individual. Right? And think of the Unabomber. He lives in his cabin, he doesn't communicate with anyone, he's a criminal he's the virtual criminal. And finally, he was recognized as a criminal that he was, and he has all the characteristics of the loner. So, somewhere he brings a closure, you know, to the socialization that's going on. And that's why, you know, when I arrived in America, I thought, wow, I've lived in primitive cultures, but I've never seen a society where things is so socialized. You know? The American society is not based on the individual, it's based on an exorcism of individualization, because every individualization has to end up in a crime. Right? It is predicated. Right? Because as soon as you don't pay attention to what happened, to the way you behave, then you basically lose the idea that if everyone was free, they would be criminal. It's only because you have an entourage that constantly brings you back, normalizes you, that you manage not to be a criminal. But the temptation of everyone is to be an individual, hence to be a criminal. Right? So the notion of punishment is extended to entire society, you see. An individual is punished before he commits a crime. You get to the precogs ideas, right? It's the idea. We know people in advance. You know, people have. That's why you have to know maximum, devise a maximum knowledge of everyone, because you could tell in advance that someone is going to become criminal, right? And instead of letting them commit the crime, you have to stop him before he does it. By arresting him, by putting him away, etc. You know, the whole idea of the precog is there. You know, there is a conformity, a conformation of the criminal, but the criminal is the ideal of the individual, right? Yeah.
Where is that idea of precogs originated? Are you talking about it from that Tom Cruise movie, or is there somebody? Yeah. Okay. I wasn't. Yeah. Okay.
But it goes one further, because. They actually anticipate the crime and they try to stop it.
Is it not Philip Dick also Minority Report? Is based on what?
I bet you're right, it is Philip.
Is it Philip Dick? Is it Philip Dick also who the Minority Report, the movie you
Yes.
Yeah, that's
referred
right.
to? It's also Philip Dick, no?
Okay.
Right.
Philip, it always goes back to Philip Dick.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So again, basically that's the idea. The most important thing is that the idea of control and the Panopticon itself, you know, when it was the idea was introduced, I mean in England they knew the Panopticon before Foucault came around, but in America it was taken as a model for control. But it is true that it was true for the 19th century, but I think things have gone much beyond that, right? Right?
Is this parallel to Deleuze's idea of moving from this environment of enclosure to a society of discipline and then society of control?
Mm-hmm.
Is it the same thing, the mold versus the modulation and...
Right. It's like we don't need the Panopticon anymore. Right? We have other ways of doing it. Now the Panopticon is everywhere, because we are being observed without knowing that we're observed. We constantly have to internalize the fact that every move we make, we're going to be made responsible of. You know, it's a general responsabilization of individuals through the entire society. So we've exploded the model of the Panopticon. So to try and interpret contemporary society by the Panopticon is a simplification of what is occurring now. Now the Panopticon is everywhere.